So I got this 2018 Toyota Tacoma a few months ago, and I've been doing projects on it ever since. I've added a lift to it, a 3-inch Icon suspension, and I've added this roof rack, and I've added a grill to the front of the truck. Today we're gonna do something that makes it way more capable off-road by adding a winch to the front, inside of a low-profile C4Fab metal bumper. The reason I like the low-profile C4Fab bumper is because it fits inside of this black plastic section right here. There is a little bit of cutting that needs to go on, but it's not going to be replacing the whole bumper and taking away from the general aesthetics of the truck. I'll start by installing the light bar and the winch into the metal bumper before I start taking the truck apart and putting the bumper into place. Let's get started. And this is the bumper. This is the bottom of the bumper here with the TRD logo, and that's where the winch goes in the front. When the bumper first arrived, it was bare metal, so I've had this powder coated, which cost me about 190 bucks, but it has a pretty sweet, almost bed-lined finish to it, which should match the plastics of the truck pretty well. On the back side of the bumper, we have a spot for a 30-inch light bar with 1 row of LEDs, and then we have a spot for the winch as well, which I will install right now. And now it's time to remove the bumper on the truck because we have to trim some things out. I'll show you how to do that. So there's one clip here, basically just slides straight out. And there's a bunch of 10mm bolts all around the bottom of the bumper and inside of the fender. And while I'm here, this fender flare right here can just pop out from the section of the bumper that we're removing. There are 3 clips, one here, here, and here, that need to pop out from this fender flare, and that lets this bottom section of the bumper come out. So there was 2 more of the 10mm bolts here, here, there, and over here, and then this other fender popped off just the same way. If you remember from one of my previous videos of swapping out this grill, we're gonna get inside of here and remove that screw there, as well as that screw there. They're both 10mm. So the 2018 Tacomas have a sensor that clips right into here, and it needs to be undone before we can pull off the grill. And now that the 2 screws are out and the 2 clips are out, the whole thing should just pull up and away from the truck. Like that. So we should be getting closer to getting the bumper off. There are 5 more clips here, 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 and here, which means there's 6. So we're underneath the front section of the truck right now, and there's this orange clip inside of here. So now that clips out, the bottom plastics inside of the fender should be able to pull away from everything else. And the bumper should be ready to come off. Looks like I forgot an important wire harness right here. I will just pull that out. It is off. So at the bottom of the bumper there is actually 8 10mm bolts holding everything in place. Now that most of the guts are exposed, we are going to remove all of these components right here. So these are 14mm bolts. I think it's called the crash bar. So we're going to remove this whole section. And then these end caps and tow hooks right here on both sides are also going to be removed. These are 17mm bolts, and I believe there's 3 of them on either side. All right, so this crash bar right here, now we have all the bolts off. It does need to be pried loose from the housing. And so this crash bar is not something we need at all, so it can be disregarded. The interesting thing is, like, we're taking a bunch of components off of the truck right now, but none of the stuff weighs anything, which is a little bit of a bummer because the bumper that we're putting on, combined with the winch and the light bar, weighs a lot. So we're adding a ton of weight to the truck, but luckily the shocks are adjustable and we can compensate for that. And look who decided to show up today. It is Brian.
What's up, everybody?
Brian's Mobile One. You might have seen him over on my main channel. He helped me install the lift on my truck, which is still in one piece. Thank you very much. None of the tires have fallen off yet. Let's keep going. So the truck's looking pretty torn apart right now. All the plastics and metal are gone, and we need to move some stuff around here.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the brackets. You can see that this one is, these are relocation brackets, marked D for driver and P for passenger. If you look, we've got fasteners here and here on the power steering cooler. And what we're going to do is we're going to move that back. There's a little air dam here. This actually helps with fuel economy and aerodynamics. We're going to move that up out of the way a little bit, and then this one's going to go back with the shorter bracket, and then the longer bracket's going to take this bolt in this half a little bit further back. A couple of things you might be curious about. The crash sensors are here and here. They don't work to set your airbags off unless your key's in the on position and you're going a certain number of miles per hour. So it's not a lot to worry about, but it is certainly something you want to be careful not to damage because they're expensive to replace. And then also you want to make sure that those things work. You don't want to hurt any of the wires around them or impact them.
So even though we've removed a lot of the components like that metal crash bar, the airbags are still going to work for safety inside of the vehicle, even though the new bumper's in place, which is good. Since all of these parts were just bare metal, we didn't want them to rust, so I just tapped them all with this red engine enamel paint. You can get black stuff, but I only have the red on hand. And it dries pretty quick, so we're ready to toss them in. Okay, so with the relocation brackets, obviously we have the D for driver, P for passenger. We made these red and we have the bolts on the bottom of them. And so basically this is where it used to sit on the frame, and now we're scooching it back right up against the radiator and getting it close enough so that we can use these new holes with the bolts right here. Now before we could slide it back, there was one bolt inside of the wheel well, which I'll show you in a second, and that had to come out as well, and that one is not being replaced, so we will have one extra bolt after we're all done with this. The brackets are in place and we're good to go.
So we need to remove this black plastic cover here. The way that you do that is you've got tabs that stick through, so you want to take them and just make them so that they'll fit through the gap. Basically you pull up on the tab on the bottom side of it, and then if you push a little bit then they don't automatically rebound. On this side, and if you did it thoroughly, you should be able to just pull it through. So the top part, you've got just the gray part of the bumper. You may have to work with that and manipulate it a little bit, but it's the same principle. Ultimately this part here needs to go that way. So push it down and then pull. Or you can reach from underneath like that. That works too.
And now for the fun cutting part. The instructions that are online are kind of confusing. They're wanting us to cut right here first, but then they tell us to come back again and cut along this curve later. So we're gonna bypass those steps and just cut along the curve of this protrusion right here, which brings us up to the black part. And then on this side, it wants us to cut 1.25 inches from the inside of this black plastic piece here. So 1.25 inches there, all the way up. And then we're gonna snip through these black plastic tabs all the way down the bumper, reach 1.25 inches on this side, and then cut straight down. But also, we're gonna use this same protrusion and get rid of it, coming all the way up this little lip until we reach the black part. Now normally I'd be pretty nervous about cutting the front bumper, but with the size of this thing, it covers the protrusion as well as goes high enough that it covers that little slot inside of the grille. So I think every cut we make right now is gonna be hidden by the metal, hopefully. Brian's making the first incision.
This will all be covered up anyway. What I should do is hold on this side. Always make sure you're cutting away from your other hand, not toward it.
All right, so remember, we're not gonna need any of this, so it doesn't really matter where I start down here. We just wanna make sure it's 1.25 inches right here, all the way up, and then over here. All right, so there's a couple different ways of doing this. You can get a Dremel, you can get a Sawzall, just whatever tool feels best to you. I found a razor blade works really well. Probably not the safest way to do it, but it's working. So I used the 10 snips to get this far, and then right here, and then I just stab my razor blade in, and it goes through the plastic pretty easily. And then we'll clean up all these cuts with some sandpaper.
The whole bit went.
Yeah. I wanted that. Let's hope we did it right. All right, so we have the bumper test fit into place, lifted up and just kind of tacked in on either side. So this is what it looks like side profile coming down. And it looks like we did a pretty good job of cutting. Right now this is still pretty raw. We haven't done any sanding or anything else on it. And once it's tacked in, it'll be fine. So what we're gonna do right now is take some of this truck edge trim. It's like this black rubber stuff, and put it along the edge right here so it has more of a clean look to it. And then we'll bolt the bumper in place. All right, so down in that hole, the bumper is sitting on that bolt right there. Same on the other side, and we are set.
So to mount this, we put it in place onto some jack stands with some protection for the coatings. And then we put 3 studs that protrude from the frame on, and that kind of gives you a little leeway to put one hand to just make sure it doesn't fall forward off the studs. You can put whatever nuts you need to. I like to do the inside ones because you're central, you can get to both sides. If you're working alone, that might be a good strategy. And then just work around to get the other one started. Large bolts from the kit, the one that are 3/4 inch head or 19 millimeter, those go up through the bottom. The little part that goes to the bottom, you got to kind of watch and negotiate that as you put it onto the studs. We tightened the bottom ones up first to kind of hold it up, and then we did the studs to hold it against the frame.
Right here, remember we spray painted that bracket red? That goes on the underside of the bumper and comes over here where the orange pin was that we removed earlier, that orange tab. So this bolts up through and holds this plastic shroud with the bumper to the metal plate, all right here. One thing that I think is cool is that right here inside of the bumper housing, we have an option to attach our controller. You know it's wireless, but you know I still have the option of putting the wired part here. And then we also have, you know, the clutch release bar right here that we can reach in and just twist if we ever just want to pull this out all the way, which is useful. So now we have the cables for the winch. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was nice to mount this over here on the left side instead of over on the center, because in the center there would have not been room with this metal bar. So that's good to know. Okay, so here's a side profile of the cutting that we did and how far the bumper sticks out. I left off the bull bar option on mine just so I wouldn't have that, you know, extra protrusion. Got the fenders put back into place along with the front grille. And one thing I do want to point out is down here it does say to take off this extra little tie down point, but those bolts are still totally exposed. So you can leave it if you would like, which, you know, I think it's always better to have more attach points. I think it turned out pretty sweet. The truck is coming out pretty much exactly how I want. I will leave all of the tools and stuff we use down in the video description, but the biggest help is having an extra pair of hands. So I'm super grateful that Brian came out to help me out.
If you want to see more automotive related videos, learn how cars work or how to fix your own car, be sure to check out my Brian's Mobile One YouTube channel.
It's pretty solid. Thanks a ton for watching, and I will see you around.